After my accident, my parents traveled on a trip to Greece with my wife and left me at the hospital. They left a message in the voicemail. "We are going to have fun. Take care of yourself and don't disturb us." So I made sure they regret everything they did. Hello. Thank you for your continuous support. This means a lot to us. If you enjoy the stories we share, kindly subscribe to this channel. It will be great if you can leave a comment on which city you are watching from. We might just give you a shout out in our next story. Today's special shout out goes to Eva from Helsinki, Finland. We are glad you enjoy our stories. Now let's dive into the details of today's story. You ever feel like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders and nobody even notices? That was me, Richard, just a regular guy trying to hold it all together. Work, family, bills, everything. I thought I was doing the right thing, being the son my parents wanted, the husband my wife deserved. But looking back now, I see it. I was drowning, and they were just watching me sink. It started like any other day. The alarm screamed at 5 a.m., loud and sharp, like a drill in my skull. I rolled out of bed, my back already aching from the mattress that was way past its prime. The air smelled stale, like yesterday's coffee and the laundry I forgot to fold. I shuffled to the kitchen, the linoleum cold under my feet, and flicked on the light. My wife, Sarah, was still asleep upstairs, probably dreaming about something better than this life we had. I made coffee, the machine gurgling like it was as tired as I was. Work was waiting for me, another 10-hour shift at the warehouse, stacking boxes, dodging forklifts, and pretending I wasn't exhausted. I didn't love my job, but it paid the bills. And trust me, there were a lot of bills. My parents, they needed money for their dream vacation to Florida last year. Then there was the car repair for my dad, the medical bills for my mom's bad knee. I paid for it all. Every time they asked, I said yes. That's what you do for family, right? Sarah wasn't much better. She liked nice things, new clothes, fancy dinners. I didn't mind, really. I wanted her to be happy. But sometimes, I'd catch her staring at her phone, smiling at something I wasn't part of. I'd ask, "What's so funny?" And she'd say, "Oh, nothing," and change the subject. It stung, but I let it go. I trusted her. I trusted all of them. That morning, though, something felt off. My parents called while I was pouring coffee, their voices crackling through the speakerphone. "Richard," my dad said, "we're thinking about Greece this time. You know, a real adventure. But flights are expensive, and hotels, well, you know how it is." I gripped the phone tighter, my knuckles turning white. "Greece," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You just went to Florida last year. I paid for that, remember?" "Oh, come on, Richard," my mom chimed in, her tone sharp, like I was being unreasonable. "You're doing fine. You always figure it out. We're not getting any younger, you know." I wanted to scream. I wanted to say, "What about me? What about what I need?" But I didn't. I just sighed, the sound heavy in my chest, and said, "I'll see what I can do." They thanked me, but it didn't feel genuine. It felt like they expected it, like I was their personal ATM. Sarah came downstairs then, her hair messy, her eyes still half closed. "Who was that?" she asked, yawning. "My parents," I said, stirring sugar into my coffee. "They want to go to Greece." She laughed, but it wasn't a kind laugh. "Greece, huh? Sounds nice. Maybe we should go too." I looked at her, hoping she was joking, but her eyes had that dreamy look again, like she was already picturing it. "Sarah," I said, "we can't afford that. I'm already stretched thin." She shrugged, grabbing a mug from the cabinet. "You're always stretched thin, Richard. Maybe you should work harder." Her words hit me like a punch. Work harder? I was killing myself at that warehouse, coming home with sore muscles and a headache that never went away. But I didn't argue. I just nodded, swallowed my coffee, and headed out the door. The drive to work was quiet, just the hum of the engine and the occasional honk from traffic. I tried to focus on the road, but my mind kept spinning. My parents, Sarah, the bills, it was all too much. I felt like I was running on empty, like there was nothing left of me to give. And then it happened. I was at work, stacking boxes in aisle 7, when I heard the forklift coming. It was loud, the engine roaring, the wheels screeching on the concrete floor. I turned to wave at the driver, make sure he saw me, but he didn't. His head was down, looking at his phone. I shouted, "Hey," but it was too late. The forklift slammed into the stack of boxes, and they came crashing down on me like an avalanche. I remember the weight, heavy and suffocating, pinning me to the ground. I remember the pain, sharp and blinding, shooting through my chest, my legs, my head. I remember the shouts, distant and muffled, like I was underwater. And then, nothing. Just darkness. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. The room smelled like bleach and antiseptic, and the beeping of machines was loud in my ears. My body ached, every breath a struggle. I tried to move, but the pain stopped me, sharp and relentless. I was alone, the room empty except for the machines keeping me alive. I waited for them, my parents, Sarah. I waited for hours, listening to the nurse's footsteps in the hall, the murmur of voices outside my door. But they didn't come. Instead, my phone buzzed on the table next to me, a voicemail waiting. I reached for it, my hand shaking, and played the message. My mom's voice came through, cheerful and carefree. "Richard, we're going to Greece with Sarah. We'll have fun, so take care of yourself and don't disturb us." The words hit me harder than the boxes, harder than the pain in my body. They were gone. They left me here, broken and alone, while they took my money and ran. And that's when I knew. I wasn't their son, their husband. I was their wallet. And I was done. That voicemail really broke me. It wasn't just words, it was a knife, twisting in my chest, carving out everything I thought I knew about my family. And the worst part? They didn't even care. They were laughing, halfway to Greece, while I was lying in this hospital bed, barely able to move. I was still reeling from the accident, my body screaming with pain every time I tried to shift. The hospital room felt like a cage, the walls too white, the air too sterile. The machines beeped, steady and loud, like they were mocking me. My phone sat on the table next to me, the screen glowing with that voicemail notification. I stared at it for a long time, my hands trembling. Part of me didn't want to listen again. Part of me wanted to pretend it was a mistake, a bad dream. But I couldn't. I had to hear it. I had to know for sure. I reached for the phone, wincing as pain shot through my arm. My fingers fumbled, clumsy and weak, but I managed to hit play. My mom's voice came through again, bright and cheerful, like she was talking about the weather. "Richard, we're going to Greece with Sarah. We'll have fun, so take care of yourself and don't disturb us." I froze. The words echoed in my head, louder than the machines, louder than the pain. Don't disturb us. Don't disturb them? I was lying here, broken, tubes in my arms, bruises on my chest, and they didn't want me to disturb them? I played it again, hoping I missed something, hoping there was a "we love you" or "we'll be back soon" buried in there. But there wasn't. Just that cold, careless tone, like I was an inconvenience, a chore they didn't want to deal with. I dropped the phone, my hands shaking. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't breathe, like the weight of those boxes was still crushing me. Tears burned my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. I was too angry for that. Angry at them, angry at myself. How did I let it get this far? How did I let them treat me like this, like I was nothing? And then it hit me. Sarah, my wife. She was with them. She didn't even leave a message, didn't even try to explain. She just went, packed her bags, and left me here. I thought about her smile, that dreamy look she had when she talked about Greece. "Maybe we should go too," she'd said. Now I saw it. She wasn't joking. She was planning. They all were. I was still spiraling when the nurse came in, her footsteps soft on the tile floor. She was older, maybe in her 50s, with a kind face and a voice that felt like a warm blanket. "Richard," she said, checking the machines, "you okay? You look pale." I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the ceiling, the fluorescent lights blurring in my vision. "They left me," I finally said, my voice hoarse, like it wasn't mine. "My parents, my wife. They took my money and went to Greece. They left me here." She stopped, her hands hovering over the four bag. I could feel her looking at me, but I didn't meet her eyes. "Oh, Richard," she said, her voice soft, almost a whisper. "I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't help." I snapped, harsher than I meant to. She didn't deserve that, but I couldn't stop. They used my credit cards, my savings. They planned this, and I didn't even know. How could they do this to me? She didn't say anything for a moment, just stood there, letting me vent. Then she said, "You need to take care of yourself first, Richard. They're not here, but you are. And you deserve better." Her words stuck with me, like a lifeline in the chaos. I deserve better. I deserve better. I kept repeating it over and over until it sank in. And that's when I knew what I had to do. I grabbed my phone again, ignoring the pain in my arm. My fingers moved fast, faster than I thought they could. I logged into my bank app, my heart pounding. I saw the charges, plane tickets, hotel bookings, all on my cards. Thousands of dollars, gone. I blocked the cards, one by one, my hands shaking but steady enough to get it done. Then I called the hotel, my voice trembling but firm. Cancel the reservations, I said. All of them. Now. The guy on the phone hesitated, asked if I was sure. I'm sure, I said and hung up. I froze the joint accounts next, locking them out. It felt good, like I was taking back a piece of myself, piece by piece. I leaned back, my chest heaving, my body exhausted but my mind racing. They were going to find out soon. They'd try to use those cards, and they'd fail. They'd call me, begging, yelling, blaming me. But I wasn't going to answer. Not this time. The nurse came back, her footsteps quiet but steady. You okay? She asked again, her voice gentle. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. No, I said, but I will be. She nodded, like she understood, and left me alone with my thoughts. I stared at the phone, waiting for the calls, the texts, the panic. And when they came, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't their wallet anymore. I was done. My parents and Sarah were stranded, and I couldn't help but feel a twisted kind of satisfaction knowing it. They left me here, broken and alone, but now they were the ones scrambling, panicking, begging for help. And me? I was done answering. The hospital room felt quieter now, like the air had settled after the storm. The machines still beeped, steady and loud, but they didn't bother me as much. I was still hurting, my chest tight, my legs aching. But the pain wasn't just physical anymore. It was deeper, sharper, like a wound that wouldn't close. I kept replaying that voicemail in my head. My mom's voice, so carefree, so cold. Don't disturb us. Those words echoed, over and over, like a song I couldn't turn off. My phone buzzed on the table, loud and insistent. I didn't need to look to know who it was. They'd found out. The cards were blocked, the hotel reservations canceled. And now they were stranded in Greece, halfway across the world, with nothing. I let it ring, the sound sharp in the quiet room. It buzzed again, then again, each call like a punch to my gut. I wanted to answer, wanted to scream, wanted to hear them beg. But I didn't. I just sat there, staring at the ceiling, letting the silence stretch. I could picture it, though. My dad, pacing in some hotel lobby, his voice loud, blaming everyone but himself. My mom, probably crying, clutching her purse like it could save her. And Sarah would be on her phone, calling friends, relatives, anyone who might listen. She'd play the victim, say it was all my fault, say I was selfish. But they wouldn't buy it. Not this time. Word was spreading, and people were starting to see them for who they really were. I wondered what it felt like for them, standing there, realizing they had nothing. No money, no hotel, no way home. Did they feel small? Did they feel scared? Did they think about me, lying here, alone, while they laughed their way through Greece? I hoped they did. I hoped it hurt. The nurse came back, her footsteps soft but steady. She'd been checking on me more often since the voicemail, like she knew I was teetering on the edge. Richard, she said, her voice gentle, you've got some missed calls. Want me to check them? No, I said, my voice flat. Let them wait. She nodded, like she understood, and started adjusting the 4-bag. You know, she said, sometimes people show you who they are. Not with words, but with what they do. And when they do, you listen. I looked at her, really looked at her. Her name tag said Margaret, and her eyes were kind, but tired, like she'd seen too much. They showed me, I said, my voice cracking. They showed me I'm nothing to them. You're not nothing, she said, firm but soft. You're here. You're fighting. And you deserve better than what they gave you. Her words stuck with me like a lifeline in the chaos. I deserved better. I'd said it before, but hearing it from her, it felt real. I started thinking, really thinking, about everything. The years I'd spent giving, until there was nothing left. The times I'd said yes when I wanted to say no. The times I'd ignored the signs, the little digs, the dismissive looks. I'd been so blind, so desperate to be loved, that I didn't see it. They didn't love me. They loved what I could do for them. I needed to talk to someone, needed to get it out. Margaret suggested therapy, said the hospital had someone I could see. I wasn't sure at first. Talking to a stranger, spilling my guts, it felt weird. But I said yes. Why not? I had nothing to lose. The therapist came later that day, a guy named Dr. Patel, with a calm voice and a notepad he didn't write much in. He asked me questions, simple ones, like, how do you feel? And what do you want? I didn't know at first. I felt everything, anger, sadness, guilt, all tangled up like a knot in my chest. But talking helped, a little. It was like pulling threads, unraveling the mess. I told him about the voicemail, about the cards, about Greece. He listened, nodding, letting me talk. You took control, he said, and that's important. But now you need to think about what comes next. Not for them, but for you. For me. I'd never thought about that before. It felt selfish, wrong, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was okay to want something for myself, to dream, to live. I started thinking about the things I used to love, painting, hiking, even just sitting in a park with a book. I'd stopped doing all that, buried it under work and family. But maybe I could start again. My phone buzzed again, louder this time, like it was angry. I glanced at it, saw Sarah's name, and felt a ping in my chest. I wanted to answer, wanted to hear her voice, but I didn't. I couldn't. Not yet. Margaret came back, her footsteps steady, and handed me a cup of water. You okay? She asked, her voice soft. No, I said, but I'm getting there. She smiled, small but genuine, and left me alone with my thoughts. I stared at the phone, waiting for the calls, the texts, the panic. And when they came, I knew one thing for sure. They were stranded, but I was starting to break free. I felt like I had to start all over again. That's where I was, lying in that hospital bed, the machine still beeping, the air still sterile. I wasn't the same Richard anymore. The voicemail, the betrayal, the revenge, it changed me. But now, I had to figure out who I wanted to be next. Not for them, not for my parents or Sarah, but for me. And that felt scary, but also kind of freeing, like I was finally allowed to breathe. The hospital room felt different now, less like a cage and more like a cocoon. The pain was still there, sharp and stubborn, but I was getting used to it. My chest ached, my legs felt heavy, but I could sit up now, move a little, feel the sunlight through the window. It was warm, soft, like a promise. Margaret, the nurse, came in every morning, her footsteps steady, her voice gentle. She'd bring me water, adjust the four, and sometimes just sit with me, like she knew I needed the company. You look better today, she said one morning, her voice bright. Stronger. I shrugged, not sure I believed her. I don't feel stronger, I said, my voice hoarse. I feel empty. That's okay, she said, sitting on the edge of the bed. Empty means there's room to fill it up with something new, something better. Her words stuck with me, like a seed planted in my chest. Something new, something better. I started thinking about the things I'd lost, not just my family, but the parts of myself I'd buried. I used to love painting, you know? I'd sit in the garage, the smell of oil paint thick in the air, the brush in my hand, and just lose myself. I'd paint landscapes, trees, skies, things that felt big and free. But I stopped, years ago, because there was always something else. Work, bills, my parents, Sarah. I let it go, like it didn't matter. But it did. It mattered to me. I started sketching again, just little things, on the notepad Margaret gave me. I'd draw the window, the machines, her face when she wasn't looking. It felt good, like I was waking up a part of myself I'd forgotten. Dr. Patel, the therapist, noticed too. He'd come by every few days, his voice calm, his notepad still mostly empty. You're finding yourself, he said, nodding at the sketches. That's important. Keep going. I did. I started dreaming again, not just at night, but during the day, when the room was quiet. I thought about hiking, feeling the dirt under my boots, the wind in my face. I thought about starting a small business, maybe selling my art, or just working somewhere quiet, somewhere I could breathe. I thought about a life without them, without the weight of their expectations, their demands. It felt possible, for the first time. But they were still out there, in Greece, and I couldn't help but wonder. I pictured them, stuck in some crowded hostel, maybe sleeping on benches, their voices loud, their faces red. My dad, yelling at the hotel staff, blaming them for his mistakes. My mom, crying, clutching her purse like it could save her. And Sarah would be on her phone, scrolling, calling, trying to find someone to bail them out. She'd posted something online, I heard, a sob story about how I abandoned them. But people weren't buying it. Friends, relatives, they were starting to see the truth. She'd lost followers, lost sympathy. They all had. Margaret told me about it one day, her voice quiet, like she wasn't sure I wanted to hear. Your wife's been posting online, she said, adjusting the four. Saying you're the bad guy. But people aren't listening. They're calling her out. I nodded, not surprised. Let them talk, I said. I'm done caring. But then the letter came. It was from Sarah, handwritten, slipped under my door by a nurse. I stared at it for a long time, the paper thin, the handwriting shaky. I didn't want to read it, didn't want to hear her voice in my head. But I did. I had to. Richard, it started, I'm so sorry. It was all your parents' idea. I didn't want to go, but they pushed me. Please, we need help. We're stuck here, and it's horrible. I love you. Please. I read it twice, my hands trembling. I wanted to believe her, wanted to think she was different, but I knew better. She was lying, playing the victim, like always. I crumpled the letter, threw it in the trash, and felt a weight lift. I wasn't going back. Not to her, not to them. Margaret came in later, her footsteps soft. You okay? She asked, her voice gentle. No, I said, but I'm getting there. She smiled, small but genuine, and left me alone with my thoughts. I stared at the window, the sunlight fading, the shadows stretching. My phone buzzed again, louder this time, like it was angry. I glanced at it, saw my dad's name, and felt a pang in my chest. I wanted to answer, wanted to hear his voice, but I didn't. I couldn't. Not yet. They were stuck, but I was moving forward. And when they came back, if they came back, I'd be ready. I'd started rebuilding, piece by piece, finding myself again. But I knew they were coming back. My parents, Sarah, they'd found a way, and now they were here, ready to tear it all down. And I had to decide, fight or fold. I'd been out of the hospital for a week, staying at a cheap motel near the warehouse. It wasn't much, just a bed, a TV, and a bathroom that smelled like bleach, but it was mine. No parents, no Sarah, just me. I'd started painting again, small canvases, landscapes mostly, the kind I used to dream about. The smell of oil paint filled the room, sharp and familiar, like an old friend. I was sketching one night, the brush in my hand, when my phone buzzed. Loud, insistent, like it was angry. I glanced at it, saw my dad's name, and felt my stomach twist. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not yet. But then I heard it, the knock at the door, hard and sharp, like they were trying to break it down. I froze, the brush slipping from my fingers, paint smearing on the canvas. My heart pounded, loud in my chest, like it was trying to escape. I knew it was them. I could feel it, like a storm cloud rolling in. Richard, my dad's voice boomed through the door, loud and angry. Open up. We know you're in there. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I just sat there, staring at the door, my hands trembling. The knocking came again, louder, faster, like they were desperate. Richard, my mom called, her voice shrill, cracking. Please, we need to talk. I wanted to ignore them, wanted to pretend they weren't there. But I couldn't. I had to face them, had to end this. I stood, my legs shaky, and walked to the door. My hand hovered over the knob, cold and heavy, like it was made of lead. I took a breath, deep and unsteady, and opened it. They looked terrible. My dad, his face red, his eyes bloodshot, like he'd been yelling for days. My mom, her hair messy, her eyes puffy, like she'd been crying. And Sarah looked smaller, somehow, her face pale, her eyes darting, like she didn't know where to look. They stood there, in the motel parking lot, the streetlights casting shadows on their faces, making them look hollow, empty. What do you want? I said, my voice low, steady, but I could feel the anger bubbling, hot and sharp. What do we want? My dad snapped, stepping forward, his voice loud. like he was trying to scare me. You left us stranded, Richard. No money, no hotel, nothing. We had to beg for help, sleep on benches, sell our stuff just to get back. Good, I said, and I meant it. You deserved it. His face went redder, like he was about to explode. Deserved it? We're your family, Richard. You owe us. Owe you? I laughed, sharp and bitter, like it hurt to say. I owe you nothing. I gave you everything. My money, my time, my life, and you left me here, broken, while you laughed your way through Greece. Don't talk to me about owing. My mom started crying, loud and dramatic, like she was performing. Richard, please, she said, her voice shaking. We didn't mean to hurt you. We just needed a break, you know? We're not perfect, but we're your family. Family doesn't do this, I said, my voice cracking, but I held it together. Family doesn't leave you in a hospital bed, alone, while they take your money and run. You showed me who you are. And I'm done. Sarah stepped forward then, her hands out, like she was trying to calm me. Richard, she said, her voice soft, pleading. It wasn't my idea. It was them. They pushed me. I didn't want to go, but I didn't know how to say no. Please, I love you. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt a pang in my chest. I wanted to believe her, wanted to think she was different, but I knew better. You wrote that letter, I said, my voice low, steady. You lied. You said it was their idea, but you went. You laughed. You left me. Don't lie to me now. She flinched, like I'd hit her, but I didn't care. I was done caring. My dad started yelling again, louder, angrier, but I didn't listen. I just stood there, letting it wash over me, like rain on glass. They could yell, they could cry, they could beg, but I wasn't going back. Not to them, not to that life. I'm selling the house, I said, cutting them off, my voice firm. I'm moving. I'm done with you. All of you. My dad's face went white, like he'd seen a ghost. My mom cried harder, louder, but I didn't flinch. Sarah just stood there, her eyes wide, like she couldn't believe it. You can't do this, my dad said, his voice shaking, but I could hear the fear. We'll sue. We'll fight you. Try, I said, and I meant it. But I'm done. I closed the door, the sound loud and final, like a gunshot. I leaned against it, my chest heaving, my hands trembling. I could hear them outside, yelling, crying, but I didn't open it. I couldn't. They were back, but I was stronger. And when they tried again, if they tried again, I'd be ready. I felt like I was standing at the edge of something big, something new, and for the first time, wasn't scared. It took a long time to get here, a lot of pain, a lot of breaking, but I'm here. I'm whole. Not because they're gone, but because I found myself. And that's worth everything. It's been 6 months since that night at the motel, 6 months since I closed the door on my parents, on Sarah, on that life. I sold the house, like I said I would. It wasn't easy. There were lawyers, paperwork, arguments, but I did it. I took the money, packed my bags, and left. I didn't tell them where I was going. I didn't owe them that. I just drove, the road stretching out in front of me, the hum of the engine steady, like a heartbeat. I ended up in a small town, a few hours from the city, the kind of place where people wave at you on the street, where the air smells like pine and rain. I rented a little apartment above a coffee shop, the kind with creaky floors and windows that let in the sunlight. It's not much, but it's mine. The smell of coffee drifts up every morning, warm and familiar, and I sit by the window, watching the world wake up. I started painting again, really painting, not just sketches, but big canvases, landscapes, skies, trees. The smell of oil paint fills the room, sharp and comforting, like an old friend. I sell them at the local market, set up a little booth with a sign that says Richard's Art. People stop, look, smile. Some buy, some just talk, but it feels good. It feels right. I'm not making a lot of money, but I'm not drowning anymore. I'm living. I started hiking too, like I always wanted. The trails here are quiet, the dirt soft under my boots, the wind cool on my face. I walk for hours, sometimes alone, sometimes with new friends I've made, people like Margaret, the nurse, who showed me kindness when I needed it most. She's retired now, but she visits sometimes, sits with me, drinks coffee, talks about life. You did it, Richard, she said once, her voice soft, proud. You found yourself. I think about that a lot, about finding myself. It wasn't easy. There were nights I cried, nights I doubted, nights I felt alone. But I kept going. I kept painting, kept hiking, kept dreaming. I started therapy again, not with Dr. Patel, but with someone new, someone who helped me untangle the mess in my head. I learned to forgive myself, not them, but me, for staying too long, for giving too much, for losing myself. And that forgiveness, it set me free. I heard about them, my parents, Sarah, through the grapevine. They're not doing great. My dad lost his temper one too many times, got into trouble, legal stuff. I don't know the details. My mom, she's quieter now, I hear, but still bitter, still blaming me. Sarah, she tried to start over, posted online about moving on, but people didn't forget. She lost friends, lost jobs, lost herself. I don't feel sorry for them, not anymore. They made their choices, and I'm making mine. I thought about letting them back in, once. My mom sent a letter, handwritten, shaky, like Sarah's. Richard, it said, we're sorry. We want to try again. We're family. I read it, felt that old pang in my chest, but I didn't answer. I couldn't. They said they were sorry, but I knew better. They were sorry they got caught, sorry they lost their wallet, not sorry they hurt me. I burned the letter, watched the flames curl the edges, and felt a weight lift. I wasn't going back. Not to them, not to that life. But I left the door open, just a crack. If they change, really change, if they get help, if they prove it, maybe, I'll talk. But it's on my terms, my boundaries. I'm not bending anymore. I'm standing tall. I think about the accident sometimes, the pain, the voicemail, the betrayal. It broke me, but it also woke me up. It showed me who they were, who I was, who I could be. I was broken, but not by the accident. By the weight of their absence, their demands, their lies. Now, I'm whole, not because they're gone, but because I found myself. I sit by the window now, the sunlight warm, the coffee strong, my latest painting drying on the easel. The horizon stretches out, wide and open, like a canvas waiting for me. I think about the future, about the trails I haven't walked, the paintings I haven't made, the dreams I haven't chased. And I smile, small but genuine, like the one Margaret gave me all those months ago. I'm not perfect. I'm still learning, still growing, still healing. But I'm here. I'm free. And when I look out at that horizon, I know one thing for sure. I'm ready. Ready for whatever comes next. Ready to live, really live, for me. So, if you're listening, if you're stuck, if you're breaking, remember this. You deserve better. You deserve yourself. And when you find that, when you stand tall, you'll see it too. The horizon, wide and open, waiting for you. If you enjoyed this, hit that subscribe button and like the video. Drop a comment below, let us know what you think. Share this with a friend who might like it, too. Don't forget to turn on notifications for more stories. See you in the next one.